morning, everyone, and welcome to TVNPA's community program, Philanthraphobia, getting over your fear of fundraising with a strong plan. Before we begin, I want to thank Sandia National Laboratories for its generous support of TVNPA's community education programs. Sandia's partnership helps us to continue bringing nonprofit leaders together to learn, connect, and strengthen their organizations, and we are very grateful. So now, it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker. Chris Carter is one of my favorite executive directors and fundraisers, and I've learned so much from him over the years. He began attending TVNPA meetings just a few months after we started and later became one of TVNPA's founding board members. And so he's been a part of our story from nearly the beginning. And so I'm especially pleased to have him with us here today. So.
Great, thank you. I'm glad Kathy asked everybody to introduce themselves. I'm always impressed with who shows up to these, and there's a lot of good fundraisers in the room. So this will be kind of an interactive session, so I'm going to ask for advice from you too. And so if you have nuggets of wisdom that you want to share, please feel free to do that. I also want to start with the fact that if you came for an amazing PowerPoint presentation, you're going to be disappointed. I'm very non-technical, but I've tried my best. And if you can't see this, that's fine. I'll be talking through it as well. And I also haven't timed my talk yet, so I don't know how long it's going to be. So it could be a couple hours. But first, I want to talk a little bit about myself. This is the only AI I use for the whole presentation, by the way. This is a picture of me in the Simpsons style. Quick biography. I began to hone my fundraising skills as a poor college student when I would call home and ask my parents for money. Right? Some of us have done that before, right? So you kind of had to have your story straight before you made the ask. So I think that's kind of where I first started asking for funds. And after I graduated college, I went down several career paths before I got into the nonprofit sector. The first thing I did is I thought I was going to be a Presbyterian minister, so I went to seminary, Presbyterian seminary for 2 years, and I worked at a church as a youth director. I realized that was not my path, so I wandered to another direction, and I thought I would get my master's degree in psychology and become a therapist. And I did receive my master's degree. I started my hours, and then same thing. I felt like, okay, this is not quite where I belong. So then I thought about some other things I value, and one of them is higher education. So I got a job working in the admissions office of a university of St. Mary's College in Moraga. And I really enjoyed that environment. And while I was there, as an admissions officer, I went to a presentation by the Vice President of Development. And he talked about the 20-year plan for the university and all the buildings they were going to build and all the money they were going to raise. And I thought that was really fascinating. I hadn't even heard the term development at the time. And then it kind of made sense to me. Oh, you're there to help develop the future. And one of my colleagues, another admissions officer, we were leaving, he said, I cannot imagine ever asking anybody for money. And I thought, I don't know. I think I can imagine myself doing that. I've already done it with my parents. But one of the things, as I look back, the common thread with all of those career choices that I started and stopped. I forgot, I failed to mention, between the counseling and the university, I worked for a high-tech company as a tech support manager for a couple of years as well, doing field and technical support. Which in some ways I was good at, but it's funny because I can't even do a PowerPoint. But I would tell a lot of people, is it plugged in? Did you reboot it? All those things. But it was kind of like therapy. You're counseling these people through things, their problems. And the common thread I found through all those professions was that one of the most important skills was to have good relationship skills. Because they were all relationship-based professions. And outward working and looking, and we were helping people whether it was at a church or at the university or at trying to get their tech support done, getting their computer fixed. And anyway, so I saw that presentation by the VP of Development, and I kind of got interested, and I had a meeting with him, and I said, I might be interested in working in your department if something ever opens up. And so a position in the alumni office opened up, and I applied for it, and I got it. And so I started working in alumni relations. Eventually, I became the alumni director, and then eventually I became the director of alumni relations and annual giving. So I kind of slowly worked my way into the giving side of things. And when I ran the alumni office, I wasn't in charge of asking. They had a whole department that was going to go out and ask people for money. That was not my job. I was a fundraiser, right? A fundraiser, F-U-N, is what they would call me. But we had an alumni board of directors, and one day I got a call from one of the board members, and he said, I'd like to make a contribution to start a scholarship in my name. And I knew that was a $50,000 level gift. I said, okay, it's $50,000. Let me get you in touch with the major gift officer who's assigned to you. And he said, I don't want to talk to that guy. I want to talk to you about this. I want to work with you. And that's when I realized the first rule of fundraising. People give to people. Number one rule. After a few years, when I got the role of annual giving director, in annual giving, we'll talk about that a little bit, I learned the second rule of fundraising, and that it's kind of a numbers game. And that the rule is, the more people you ask and the more often you ask, typically the more you will get. It's just, it's just the more you do, the more you receive, right? So those are the two top rules of fundraising that I always kind of live by. One is it's all about relationships. People give to people. And the second one is the more you ask, the more money you will raise, and the more people you ask. Those are the top two rules of fundraising for me. But fundraising can be scary, right? So how many people get nervous when they ask somebody for a donation? Yeah, me too, right? I still get nervous when I ask my parents for money. No, I'm just kidding. But I do remember the first time I asked somebody for $100,000, and it was nerve-wracking. But my desire to raise that money was higher than my fear. So I looked past the fear because it was so important that we raise that money. So for me, that was the catalyst that allowed me to do that. But we'll talk a little bit here. That's the laser thing. Yeah, I'm not good at technology. So the question is, why is fundraising scary? So anybody have some thoughts? Why is fundraising scary? Rejection?
Yeah.
Fear of rejection? That's the first one right there. Fear of rejection. Fear of upsetting somebody or getting rejected. What else? Why is it scary?
Makes you feel less than, that you need help all the time.
Yeah? How about this? We don't feel worthy. Right? Maybe. Sometimes we don't feel worthy of that. What's another reason it might be scary?
Fear of failure.
Fear of failure. Right? Failure sucks, right? What else?
Assumptions.
Assumptions?
Yeah, people make assumptions about donors, about communities that often are their own bias.
Yeah. And how do you get past that?
You investigate your own bias,
Right.
honestly.
Any other?
The relationship really matters.
You don't want to mess up the relationship by screwing up and asking for something that might not fit with that person, right? How about this one? We live in a culture where talking about money is kind of taboo. Do all your friends know how much you make? Do your kids know how much you make? I mean, we don't talk about that. And we tell people, oh, we're not supposed to talk about that. And so we're kind of trained from when we're really young that we don't talk about money. And so there's a part of us that's inherently uncomfortable asking about money. Any other reason? Those are some pretty good ones. Let's talk about the truth about fundraising. The first one I'll bring up a lot. Fundraising is relational, it's not transactional. It's not a transaction. You're not going to ask somebody for a $100,000 donation that you do not know, or not know well, specifically. People give to people, they do not give to organizations. They could love what you do, but if they don't like you, guess what? It's not going to happen. The third thing is the ask is only 1% of the process. That moment where you're actually asking for the donation is the smallest component of fundraising. It's so much bigger than that. And the final thing is giving money feels good. Remember that. Why do you make a donation? Think about, why do you donate to certain causes? Why do we? Why do we donate to different causes that we believe in?
It feels good.
It feels good. We believe in the cause. A wise person told me the only thing that feels better than making a lot of money is giving a lot of money away. And that is a real truth. So don't forget that. If you're giving somebody an opportunity to have a really powerful impact and they're capable of doing it, that is a gift that you're giving them, not the opposite. It's both. I guess it's both ways. But giving feels good. So remember that. Keep that in mind all the time. So let's talk about some things that make fundraising a little bit less scary. I gotta look my notes here. There's a few elements here that I want to bring up. The first one is you need to have a culture of philanthropy within your whole organization. So if everybody is on board with the idea that you're a fundraising organization, from the first person that does all your programming, to the people that are asking for money, to your executive director, to all your board members, they buy into the idea that part of what you are as an organization is you're a fundraising organization. That's a big deal. So you have to have a culture of philanthropy, and that definitely makes things easier when everybody understands that. Fundraising is easier when you understand the donor cycle, when you know what phase of the cycle these people are in as you're working with them, so you don't ask for funds at the wrong time. You've got to kind of know what the cycle is for the donor, and we're going to talk about that. Fundraising is easier when you have goals. You know what you're asking for. It's a lot easier, and being specific in your ask is really important, and we'll talk about that later too. And then finally, you have to have, I'm going to put this all together, so if you have a plan based on your goals, and you have an understanding of the donor cycle and the culture of philanthropy, and it's all kind of wrapped into your plan, the plan is really what will help you make those decisions about when to ask and who to ask and all those things, and it kind of helps you get through the uncertainty of the fundraising objectives. So there's a guy in a soccer goal. We just had the subject soccer tournament here, so I pulled that from the internet with my incredible skills. And so for the purpose of today, we're going to talk a lot about the elements of the plan that are really related to the ask. There's a larger development plan that I'm going to touch on, but I'm really going to focus on the ask part. So let's start with the culture of philanthropy. Who's heard of that term before? Culture of philanthropy. What does it mean? What is a culture of philanthropy? Yes.
Deb, so the idea that everyone in the organization is responsible for building those relationships, everyone understands that they don't just have a task that they're
Right. Does that mean everybody needs to ask for money?
No.
No.
But everyone has a part.
But everyone has to understand that asking for money is important for the job to get done, right? So it's a shared responsibility. So fundraising is everybody's job. And so what we talk about here, when I run the Performing Arts Center here, we have our monthly meetings with the staff, we talk about things like the patron experience and making sure that everybody that steps through that door is viewed as a potential donor. And so they're when they call the box office, to where they meet the ushers, or they take a ticket, or they go inside, and it's production too. we want the quality of the performance to be really good. We want them to have a great experience from top to bottom. So then when those people that do ask for donations, they've already been primed and they already know this is a great organization. And they know that fundraising is an element of the donation. What does that say? It's got to integrate and align with your mission. So everybody on your staff needs to know the mission. Doesn't matter what they do, they need to understand the mission of your organization and the vision of your organization. And we talk about fundraising as engagement. So what you just said, Lisa. So every touch point anybody on your team or board has with any prospective person, and as long as you're looking at everybody that's in contact with your organization as a prospective donor, because you don't know what their story is, it's about that engagement. And then strong donor relationships throughout the organization. So I might know a lot of donors and be close to them, but Brian, who's our front of house manager today, also knows donors, and he might know them better than me through some other avenue, right? So I want to make sure that Brian's having a positive relationship with those people, even though he's not in charge of asking for funds. But you could have, anybody on your team could have a really strong relationship with somebody stronger than you. And it's important that they understand how their relationship with that person impacts the organization. I'll tell you a story. So when I worked at St. Mary's College, if you're familiar, was run by the Christian Brothers, and it's a Catholic order. And for a long time, for about 100 years of that school's existence, they did not do a lot of fundraising because they had the brothers. The brothers were this order, they worked there, they didn't get paid, and they viewed the brothers as the living endowment of the college. So we didn't need money, we had the living endowment. Well, fast forward to the year 2000, the number of brothers actually working on campus dwindles from over 100 to about 25. And now there's 0. So that living endowment is gone. And there was some point in the school's history they thought, oh, we need to start raising money. But to this day, because there was not a culture of philanthropy for the first 100 years, it still doesn't fully exist at that university. It's still very hard to raise money the way that some other schools do. So if, we would always compare ourselves to Santa Clara, which is a Jesuit university. They're very good at fundraising. They've been doing it since the beginning. And we hadn't. So there's a lot of catching up to do. So even if you don't think you need it now, if you're not instilling that culture of philanthropy, you could be in trouble in the future when you do need it. So always put that at the forefront. And I mentioned before, in our monthly staff meetings with the whole staff, everybody's here, box office, backstage, everybody, and I'll talk about a big donation that we got, and I'll remind them, the reason why these people donated is because they came to this show and they had an incredible experience. They had a conversation with, they know Michael in the box office, they had a great conversation. It wasn't just that they asked that we made. So we celebrate those big donations, and we celebrate it together as an organization, and we remind them that they're all a part of that gift. They're all responsible for that, not just the person that made the ask. So let's talk about the donor cycle. Are you guys familiar with the donor cycle? Who's heard of that, right? There's a little diagram here. There's one term I'm going to use a little bit differently, but the first part of the donor cycle is you have to identify the donor, right? You need to know who they are, so first part is identify. Second is qualify. So you have found somebody that's a prospective donor, but you need to qualify them now and say, are they a prospective donor for you? It's very different. Another funny story, when I worked at St. Mary's, we would talk to our regents about expanding the board, or who do they know, and people would throw out, oh, the CEO of Dell is a Catholic. We should get him. And I'd say, great, does anybody know him? No. Has he connected to St. Mary's at all? No. So yes, he's a good donor for somebody, but probably not for us, right? So you have to qualify. Then you have to cultivate that donor. Then at some point you can make the ask. And in this diagram it says solicit. I don't like the word solicit. I mean, some people have signs on their doors that say no solicitors. There's kind of a weird connotation to that. So I like to say ask, because that's really what we're doing. And then once they make the donation, you steward them, because you want them to continue to donate. It's a lot easier to keep donors than to acquire a donor. Always keep that in mind. And then you repeat steps 2 through 5. So stewarding and cultivating are very similar, but we'll talk about that. So those are so that's about the donor cycle. And then you're going to start putting together your plan, because you have a culture of philanthropy, you understand the donor cycle, and the plan is going to kind of work through the donor cycle. So how am I addressing the identify? How am I addressing the qualify? How am I addressing the ask? How am I addressing the cultivation and the stewardship? How am I doing all of those things? What are the elements of my program that address all of those items? And then you also have to have your goals. So what's your primary goal? Everybody know how much money they need to raise this year? You know the number? Do you have an idea in mind? You should, right? So for us, we talk about the total money we need to raise and the total number of members that we want. That could be total number of donors for you. So those are 2 good primary goals. So it's not just money, it's the volume, the amount of donors. Because remember the math, the more people you ask, the more money you get, right? And then let's break it down a little bit more. So let's set up some real strategic initiatives. So you've got this big goal. The big goal is scary. So how do you make a big scary goal less scary? You break it down, right? We were just talking about this, Kathy. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? So let's break it down. And I'm going to read these out so you don't have to read them because they're pretty small here. But identify and qualify X number of potential major gift donors. So that would be one goal. So let's say we want to identify 50 new major donors for this year. And so then we can put a plan in place around how do we do that? Meet with X number of major gift donors every month. When I was at St. Mary's, every major gift officer had a quota. You have to have X number of meetings a month, because the more you talk to them and the more you ask, the more you get. Secure X number of major gifts from new donors. So we're going to get 10 major gifts from new people that have never done a major gift before. So what's our plan for that? Secure X number of corporate donors. We're not going to talk too much about corporate giving, but that could be a good goal. We want 5 new corporate donors this year. Retain a certain percentage of donors from last year. Has anybody heard the term leaky bucket? There's a kind of a leaky bucket problem in fundraising. So you have this bucket of donors from one year, and then all of a sudden a bunch of them don't donate again the next year. And the way you identify major donors, one of the ways you qualify them is people that have donated year to year over a certain number of years, right? Consistent giving. Those people are great prospects for major giving. And so how am I addressing the retention rate? And maybe upgrading your donors. So we've got 100 donors that give $100 a year, and we want to have 20 of them go up to $200 a year. So what's our plan to get them moving up in this cycle? So kind of think about what other goals that I can do that it's not just about the big number, but if I do all of these things, that's going to help me get to that big number. So really break it down. And here's your elements of your plan. So these are the big, what I would call the big elements of any fundraising plan. So you've got your goals. So now let's dive in a little bit more. So one thing is research and reporting. So how are you doing your research? What kind of reports do you need to help you be successful? So that's kind of the identify and qualify part of the donor cycle. Cultivation. So what kind of cultivation programs are you doing? So that's the cultivate part of the donor cycle. The ask. And when I look at the ask, there's lots of different types of asks, right? So there's annual giving, there's major giving, there's corporate giving, there's grants, there's fundraising events, there's planned giving, there's all sorts of ways to for the money to come in. So are you kind of thinking about each one of these and what's my plan for each one of these elements? And stewardship. What am I doing once they've made the gift to ensure that they're very happy with that gift and that they're going to continue giving and even upgrade their giving over time? And then planned giving we talked about, and then a calendar. So kind of map it all out. So when am I going to do these things throughout the year? And at the bare minimum, you need to think about cultivation and stewardship all the time. You need to have a good annual giving program because that's where all your major donors are going to come out. One of the things that's fortunate for us here at the Performing Arts Center is our donors come here all the time. We have this VIP room that our big donors come into. I get to see them, I get to talk to them all the time. I have a way to identify people pretty easily. How do you identify them? How do you identify prospective major donors? Probably the best way is through your annual giving program.
Can you talk a little bit about cultivation and what that actually looks like?
Yes.
Do you have that on there?
I do. So if you don't do cultivation and stewardship and you don't do annual giving, it's really hard to get to major giving. Right? So there you go. Let's talk about cultivation and stewardship. How am I on time, by the way?
Yeah, you're good.
Good. Okay. Thank you. So cultivation, you've identified somebody that you think is a good prospect. You want to cultivate them. This is part of that relationship building that's really important. And there's a lot of ways you can do cultivation. So for us, we have open houses. We do dinners. We invite people on tours on the bankhead. We take people to lunch all the time. We meet with donors. We have, like I said, the VIP room here. So we do a lot of ways, we think of a lot of ways to cultivate people. We try to message appropriately as we're cultivating too, so that people understand that we are a nonprofit. We don't just make money off of ticket sales. So we think we're pretty good about that. So one of the things about cultivation is you kind of have to take it from the approach that everyone is a prospect. Everybody you meet with, everybody you're in contact with is a prospective donor, or they know a prospective donor. So it's kind of, that's why that cultural philanthropy is really important. So you're cultivating people no matter where that touch point is. That's a cultivation moment. And then I'll talk about direct cultivation and stewardship. So that would be for me, it would be a curtain talk. So before a show, I come out, I welcome people to the show, and I remind them, hey, we're a nonprofit organization and we need support. So I hope you consider becoming a member. So I do that every chance I get, and it's not just me, it's the rest of our staff that does those curtain talks. Whenever we're in front of the audience, we remind them, whether or not they know it or not, they're gonna get some kind of a little bit of a cultivation piece. Email, great way to cultivate people. Do you have an email list? Are you building it up? What are you saying in your email messaging? Events, lots of events. We do member nights, we do open houses, we have these, we have a donor that likes to host private dinners for people and things like that. So are you thinking about those things? And then there's some indirect ways to cultivate and stewardship people. So think about, do you have an annual report? Who has an annual report? Does anybody do annual reports? The first year I worked here as the development director, we had never done an annual report, and I was like, wow, we need to tell people how we're doing. We need to talk about our success, and we need to thank them for all their donations. Do you need to have a donor list on your annual report? A donor roll? Is that necessary? I don't know, probably not. I don't think it really impacts people's giving, but some people are used to that. So you want to make sure you're acknowledging people appropriately. So if you're not doing that, how are you recognizing them? We used to do that, and then we stopped. And one of the reasons why is because when you have 1,000 donors, inevitably you're going to make a mistake with somebody's name. So it's better just to not do that. We have a donor wall here, and it's digital, so we can update it throughout the year. And if someone says, "Hey, my name's wrong," we can fix it. That's one of the reasons why we do that. So annual report. If you don't have an annual report, it doesn't need to be printed. It can be online. Something that says, "Here's how we did this year. Here's the programs that we did. Here's what we did with your money." Super important. Your website. Do you have a donate button on your website? Right? Is it on every page of your website? Can people donate from any point of your website? So think about that. And the last thing I wrote here is presence, if you can't see that. And I talk a lot about presence to my staff and my colleagues, and that just means like what you're doing today. You're showing up at events. You're showing up at events where donors are. You're showing up, so if you don't go to the chamber events, you probably should, because there's probably a lot of good corporate partners you can find there. So just being present, meeting people. I go to other organizations' fundraising events, and one, because I want to support them, but two, it's a great way for me to have some presence, and people know that I'm a supportive member of the community too. And so the more people you know, the more presence you have. That's kind of an indirect way to really cultivate and steward people, but it's just, I think it's really important to have presence in the community.
Chris, can I make a
Yes.
comment?
Yep.
I just always say this because I've had this experience. Two things. Oh, sorry. I think authenticity is really important, because when we think about people, if we're looking at everyone as a prospect, they can feel it. So being authentic about your mission,
Good
in
point.
your organization, and also I've had the really amazing experience of people coming to my event and soliciting my donors at my event.
Which
Don't
is a
do
bad
that.
thing. Don't do that. If you're going to somebody else's event, it's because you're there to support them. But the fact that you're there, I think, has an impact on other people. So I think that's what's important. So you're not there to be to poach donors or anything like that, but it's about having a presence. And I think the more present you are in the community, that's part of that relationship building piece. And the authenticity is right, and we're going to talk about that too. Thinking about some other stewardship vehicles, do you call your donors and say thank you? Probably should. They get a thank you letter. One thing, Brittany, who's our development director, she's really good about is writing personal notes in the thank you letter. Because then it feels good when you write a personal note and they know you, they recognize you. It's not just a quick acknowledgement. So think about ways that you can steward those people and make them feel really good about their work. It's super important.
Chris,
Yes,
can you tell us about the rule of the thanking, the 3 times?
I'm going to say that.
Yeah, okay, there you go.
I mean, people know what I'm going to say. I'll talk real quick about annual giving, just to make sure you are thinking about your annual giving program. So annual giving is those yearly unrestricted small to mid-sized gifts that you get throughout the year. You should have a calendar of when you're doing specific campaigns. Make sure if you're going to do mailers, you plan it out for the year. Print them ahead of time if you can. Think about renewals. So it's not just trying to acquire new donors. What are you doing to renew people? So we have a whole system of renewals. The way our donations work is it's calendar based, so it's on the anniversary of your gift. And when that anniversary is coming up, we send you a couple email reminders, and then if we still don't get a renewal, we'll send you a letter. You might get a call, kind of depending on the level, things like that. So we focus a lot on renewals, and our retention rate is very high. Upgrade campaigns. Have you ever done an upgrade campaign? So we have different giving levels in our organization, and kind of the threshold when you start getting into the higher levels is $1,250. And so if you're somebody that's at $500, you might get a letter from us once a year saying, you know what, we really love you to be at this level. And we'll typically we'll send out 100 letters and we'll get maybe 10 back that have gone up. So that's a pretty good return rate on a small investment. And those are very personalized letters, by the way. Special membership drive. Are you doing giving days? Those kind of things. So you should have that all kind of calendared, because the more you ask, more people you ask, and the more often you ask, the more you get. By the way, when are you asking too much? Do you know?
Somebody say no.
When somebody tells you. You know what, sending me way too many emails. Okay, I'll back off. But until somebody tells you, you don't really know. And so it's better to err on the side of, we work on this all the time. We used to do like on a giving day, we'd have like 6 emails scheduled just for that day, you know, so, you know, some people that don't like that, and they'll unsubscribe, and they're probably not your main audience.
A question about upgrade campaigns. Like, is it enough to just offer them an opportunity to upgrade, or do you have to offer them something in return?
So the question is, what are you, if you're asking somebody to upgrade, what are you offering them anything in return? We're somewhat unique. I can't speak to other organizations, but we have different benefits at different levels of membership. So you get more the more you give. So if there's some way to, if you have like a special event that only certain donors are invited to every year, so that might be something like, hey, you're so close, and if you get up to this level, here's what one of the things you'll get as a special event. You'll get a tour of our facility. You know, some things like that really don't cost you a lot. Also think about that, and that gives you a chance to steward them more and have, you know, strengthen those relationships. It's a good question. And so just a reminder, a strong annual giving campaign is one of the best ways to identify major donors. So those people that, like I said, give consistently, year to year. If somebody gives multiple times in a year, that is a very good indicator that they're looking to potentially be a major donor. So every time you send out an email solicitation and that this one person responds every single time, and they give you $100 every time, you might want to go have lunch with them and talk about what their interests are and see if that can lead to something. Let's talk about major gifts. Do you have a major gift threshold, like what you would call it? So the definition of a major gift should vary depending on your organization. When I was at St. Mary's, a major gift was $50,000. Here, for us, it's $10,000 is a major gift. So have you thought about what's a major gift for you? Then you can put a whole program around that. When people hit this threshold, then there's certain things that they get, like the annual report comes in the mail and all these little different elements, and you put them in a different class. So you should have a thought about what a major gift is. I like to say there's major gifts, then there's principal gifts, and then there's transformative gifts. Mm-hmm. So for us, a major gift would be $10,000. A principal gift is $100,000. A transformative gift would be $1 million. And so we have a major gift goal, but we also I like to think about, well, how many principal gifts can we get this year to help us get to that goal? Is anybody ready for a principal gift? So first question you have to think about is, how do you define a major gift? Second thing you need to do is build the pipeline. So you need to have a list of who those potential major gift donors are. You know, when I was at St. Mary's College, we called them pipeline meetings. We'd all get together, everyone would go through their lists, and they'd say, I'm having lunch with Tracy next week. Does anybody know anything about Tracy? Can you help me understand what might be a good motivator for her? And someone would say, oh yeah, Tracy came to the basketball game the other day, and she really had a great time at the basketball. Okay, I'm going to bring them. We'll talk about the basketball game. So we would have these pipeline meetings, and we would really try and learn as much as we could about the donor in these meetings. So you have to have they call it a pipeline. So that's your list of potential major gift donors. And you can have all sorts of columns on that spreadsheet, and we can talk about that later, but there could be a column that's, here's when is a good time to ask. Here's what we should be asking for. And then, you know, here's some more information about this person. Here's the gift range that I think would be good for that person. So you kind of move them through the system. You should set a goal for monthly meetings. So if you're a major gift officer or you have major gift donors, you really need to put it on yourself to go out and meet with them. And if you're not doing that, then you need to give yourself a number. Because if it's not just part of what you do, then you need to say, I got to do this 10 times a month. And at the beginning of every month, you go through your list. Who am I asking to meet with this month? It really helps when you do those things, when you put those goals down. And you should develop that strategy for each person, like I just said. That's how, when you're getting to know them, what's the appropriate thing to ask them. So here's some questions you can ask in the strategy. What is their interest? What is their capacity? How do you know what someone's capacity is? You ask them. Yeah, sometimes you got to ask. If you don't know, you got to ask.
How would you ask? How much money you got? Here's an example.
You know, I kind of do things like, you know, I'm thinking about asking you for X, but I don't know if that's appropriate. And they might go, oh, yeah, that's probably about right. Sometimes you can, you know, if you have research or you can do wealth engine and all those things, you kind of get a better idea of what someone's capacity is. I don't know how helpful those tools are. You know, I'm kind of bad about, like, if I find your address, I'm going to look up your house on Google sometimes. Oh, this person's got a really big house.
Even though they're expensive.
My capacity. But what is their capacity? You should have an idea of that before you make the ask. When do you make the ask? Like, what time of year do you make the ask? How far along in the relationship? I had lunch. There's this prospective donor I've been working with for a few years. Just sold their company last year. I had lunch with this person last summer, and I just said, when would be a good time to talk to you about this? And he said, next summer is going to be great. So I've got it on my calendar to talk to this person this summer. And I've done that a lot of times with donors, prospective donors. I'm thinking about, you know, asking you for something, but I want to know when the appropriate time would be. And so you kind of have to respect their timeline. And they'll tell you, they'll be honest. I've also had times when I've met with a donor, a prospective donor, and I didn't plan on making an ask, and then I walked away with a $50,000 gift because the time was then. And so you have to be ready to make the ask at that moment too. Another question you can put in the pipeline is, how do you make the ask? Is it a personal meeting? Do they like phone calls? Can you just email them? Is there a restaurant they really like? Do you take them to lunch? Do you take them to dinner? Do you invite them to your office? Do you go to their office? So, like, how do you do that? And where do you do it? And who makes the ask? That's also really important. Do you have the best relationship with that donor, or is it somebody else in your organization that maybe you could bring with you to be a part of that conversation? And who do you ask? Is it the husband? Is it the wife? A lot of times the wife makes those decisions. Is it them together? You have to know them before you know what that answer is. So that's a big important thing about getting to know the donor. And then making the ask. So here's some tips about making the ask. In parentheses it says, without making an ask of yourself. So you need to be prepared and be specific. The first time I asked somebody for $250,000, I had a letter in a folder, and I gave it to them, and there was a proposal. And we were starting a new fund called the Producer Circle. And it was a fund that would help support, subsidize some of these programs that we do that are what I would call artistically significant, but financially risky. And so we knew this is something that they would be really interested in. And so I've really laid it out exactly what their gift would do, and that we're asking them for $250,000, and it was going to be $50,000 a year. It was going to be a 5-year commitment. And so you have to be specific. Be prepared and be specific. If you're not ready to answer questions about that ask, you should not make that ask. Make it significant. So I like to tell people to give till it hurts. I like to think about me giving till it hurts. Don't undersell what you as an organization can offer, and don't underestimate what they can give. So if you ask for $5,000 to somebody that can give you $100,000, guess what? You're going to get $5,000. You're not going to get $100,000. So make the ask significant, because that will be a memorable meeting for them and for you. And that's always the scary part, I know, but that is a really important factor. If it's not significant, it might not be meaningful to that person. Make sure that you know what that support will do, and you can explain that clearly. And here's a real good tip. Once you ask, stop talking. Don't say anything and let them respond. And it could be uncomfortable. It could be a minute of silence. But you do not say anything, because the second you start talking again, is when you go, oh, well, you could also do this, or maybe do this, or have you, it doesn't have to be this. It's really hard to not talk, but you have to stop talking when you make the big ask. When I asked that couple for $250,000 and I gave them the letter and I explained it to them, I just sat there and waited for about 2 minutes. And the husband started smiling because he knew beforehand the answer was going to be yes. He just wanted to see me sweat it out. He thought it was funny. But I didn't say anything. So once you ask, you got to leave it out there and let them respond. Always remember it's their money. Capital T-H-E-I-R. It's their money. They are not a human ATM. They decide what they do with it, just like you decide how you spend your money. So whatever they say, you have to respect that choice. There should be no expectation, ever. Oh yeah, they'll definitely give. No, never think that way. You have to respect the donor.
Chris,
Yes.
you mentioned about spreading out the total, there's a total amount, but then you said a 5-year commitment.
Mm-hmm.
Does that work more often than not? Is that a better angle to?
So the question was, does a multi-year pledge work better than a one-time gift? Usually you can get more money if you ask for a multi-year commitment. So it's a higher gift. Sometimes
for one time.
Yeah, and you can book it all at once, which is nice. So it goes all on your bottom line for that specific year. So it kind of boosts your overall fundraising goal. And then you have some cash flow for the years to come that you don't have to worry about quite as much. Sometimes I'll have a conversation with somebody and it might go, you know what, you've given us $5,000 a year, every year for the last 10 years. I'd love it if you would consider moving that up to $10,000. And would you mind putting that in writing so that we have a 5-year commitment? So this $5,000 annual donor now has become a $50,000 major donor for you. And they feel really good about that commitment. They've moved up to a whole new level. So the multi-year commitment is a good way to get people in the door for those major gifts. Because they might be like, whoa, $100,000 right now? No, $100,000 over the next 5 years, $20,000. Yes?
So if they say, yes, I'm going to give $10,000 a year for 5 years, you don't put them on your website as the $10,000 donor. They get to go into the 50 because they've made the commitment.
Yes.
So their name is there
They're a
for 5 years.
$50,000 donor. Well, I think the way we do it is they're a $50,000 donor for that year, and then the rest of the time we put them at the other level. But it kind of depends on what they want. If they want to be at the 50K level, that's fine. I don't care. If that makes them feel good, then do what makes them feel good. It's just a donor role.
I have one question.
Yeah.
One problem I have is when you commit them like that, a lot of times at some point they'll say, oh no, I've changed my mind, I can't do this anymore. So they give it for the first 2 months or whatever, or they give it the first year or 2, but then they say, oh, I changed my mind. How do you get people to stay committed to that?
Well, that's a good question. Well, first of all, you have to steward them very well and make sure they feel appreciated. But they have to understand when they make that commitment, it's legally binding. If you give them the pledge form and they sign it, you've booked it. It's already, you can't, it really messes up your bottom line if you have to reverse that, because you got to go back a couple of years. It makes you look bad as an organization when those things happen. So you have to be very confident that this person is going to be able to commit to that, and they have to understand the nature of that commitment. If you don't think if you think it's kind of up in the air, then I would not do it. Not worth it.
Let me ask, you wouldn't book it as a full pledge?
I wouldn't ask him
Wouldn't
for
ask
that.
for that.
I wouldn't ask him for a
Well,
pledge.
sometimes you're taking pledges, right? So the person will say that they'll do it, right? If you're saying, I need somebody at 25,000, and they say that do whatever it is, and they say, I'll do it over the next 2 years, I'll give it to you. But then they give the first year, but they don't give the second year. I always get stuck with that problem often, because that happens more frequently than not. But
You have to get it in writing.
Even if they fill out that pledge form, though, I'll have pledge forms, but somehow people don't think that's legally binding, or they don't
Yeah, it kind of depends on the size of if you have someone that gave $1 million pledge and halfway through they're out of it, you got to talk to your lawyer. and you got to work something out. So it just kind of depends on the amount of it. But that's a good question. But you have also, it's like, why did they back out? What did we do? So are you holding up your end of the bargain?
Sometimes it's not you, sometimes it's just them. Like,
Could be.
business, something.
When you're making the ask, no usually means not now. Or it could be just a different number. Maybe you got it wrong. The first time I asked someone for $100,000 was pretty scary. And they said no, but they ended up giving $20,000. And I was happy with that.
How did you deal with that?
Like at the moment,
Right.
you just have to respect it. Say, oh, I understand. I appreciate you thinking about it. I really appreciate your support. And if you change your mind, let me know. If there's anything different that you're interested in, we can talk about it. You don't give up on the donor.
Do you put 20,000 on the table then, or is that?
That was what they offered.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I didn't ask for 20. They said, well, I could do 20.
Okay.
And so that was kind of where we landed. But a lot of times it just means I'm not ready, not right now. And sometimes they'll say, ask me in a few months or whatever. But if you don't ask, you don't make the ask, you don't know. And here's the bottom line: is giving should always feel good. If it doesn't feel good for that person, if it feels like you're pulling their teeth or something, then run away, because it's not going to be a healthy ask. It should always feel good. They should feel great about it, and you should be grateful for it. So make sure that it feels good. And this is kind of an intangible thing, right? You just have to be in the moment, and you have to know that it's going to feel good. If it starts to feel a little bit awkward, then you've made a misstep, or you haven't thought it all the way through, or maybe this person's maybe it's just something that you don't know is going on, and you've just learned it. So those things happen. Last one. Who pays for lunch? So who pays for lunch? If you go out with a donor and you ask them for $100,000 and they say yes, who buys the lunch? You do. Really? I don't know. It kind of depends. There used to be the rule. The rule was always that the donor pays, but I've heard stories of people, gift officers, having lunch with the donor and just sitting at the table for an extra 50 minutes while the bill is just out there waiting for them to pick it up. And I think that's super uncomfortable. So here's what I do. I let it sit for a few minutes. If they're not going to pick it up, I don't let it linger. But a lot of times people know that you're a nonprofit and they want to support you in a lot of ways, and they know that this is coming out of the pocket of the nonprofit, this lunch, so they don't want you to have to pay for that. So for them, that's part of their donations, is buying the lunch. So give them the opportunity to buy it, but if they don't do it within a minute or two, just pick it up. And if they do 100,000 and you feel like, great, I'll pay for it. Don't worry about it. But you should kind of give them a chance, because sometimes they want to do that too. 15 minutes. Okay. We're getting close. Here's a couple of examples of words you could use when you're asking for a donation. You have been such a wonderful supporter over the years, and I would like you to consider X, whatever. There's a new project that we're planning, and I think it's something that you would be really excited about. Here's another one. Your support over the years has been really important to us. Would you consider, like we just talked about, a multi-year pledge of whatever to help us? And the last one is, can I get your advice on something? Because oftentimes, some people know the old saying, if you want advice, ask for money. And if you want money, ask for advice. So just kind of something to keep in your back pocket. But it's good to get advice from people who are philanthropic, because guess what? They know a lot too. So it doesn't hurt to ask for advice. You should be asking for advice from people all the time. Now here's the important thing. They have to like you. That's a picture of Barney. What's the song he does? I love you, you love me. Right? So they have to like you and you have to like them. So I just wanted to bring up a few traits that are important for relationship building. People are attracted to warmth and kindness. So I think everybody in this room has that. So you're already a step ahead. Empathy. Make sure you show empathy. So if they're talking about something that is, bothering them, you should try to relate to them, understand them, where they're coming from. Confidence, but not arrogance. So you want to feel confident that whatever you're asking is a good ask. And if they can tell if you're not confident. Authenticity. Somebody said that earlier. Valerie said authenticity. You need to be authentic. You have to believe in what you're raising money for, and be your true self. By the way, when the first time that I got that call from that alumni board member that wanted to get $50,000 and he didn't want to talk to that other guy, he told me he didn't feel like that other person was authentic. He thought I was. Be a good listener, right? Listen more than you speak. Have a good sense of humor. Those are attractive qualities. Do you know the breed of dog that does magic tricks? It's a Labrador. Now you have that, put that in your pocket, you're ready to have a dog lover, tell them that one. You know the saddest breed of dog? The melancholy. I got dog jokes. And have a growth mindset. So a lot of times when you're asking for something, it's like you're kind of preparing people for the future. We have this great plan in mind, we have this vision, and that's part of it. But also having a growth mindset means you're willing to change and grow too. So if you're asking for something and they said, you know what I really observed is this, and it makes sense, go, yeah, I think you're right. So don't be stubborn. And here's some great things about philanthropists. So you have to like them too. And I always keep this in mind when I'm talking to people that have a potential to give. They are altruistic. They're giving by nature. They are empathic, just like we talked about you showing empathy. The reason why they're interested in giving is because they see the need. They have a heightened social awareness. So they're aware of the issues that you're facing, most likely. They are farsighted. So they look to the future as much as you do. And they want to know how they can help. They are issue-oriented. So if you have an issue that they're passionate about, I was just having a conversation with my wife last night, and she was talking about food insecurity. And that she volunteers at her kitchen and how important that is to her. So if there was somebody that was to talk to her about a gift, if you worked in that field, that would probably be a good gift for her to respond to. Yeah, there you go. And they typically are business minded. So you're a nonprofit, you're a business, oftentimes they can help you. I learn a lot from people who are philanthropic, and I enjoy being around them a ton. That's one of my favorite parts of the job. And it's not, the ask part is such a small element. I'm developing a relationship with somebody that is successful, generous, and kind. And those are great qualities to have. By the way, you know what turns people off? I didn't put this up here. Arrogance, conversational dominance. Remember we're talking about listening. Constant complaining. So when you're making the ask, it's not because things are going wrong. It's because things are going well, and you've got a great plan for the future. Unreliability. So that's where the stewardship thing is really important. Passive-aggressive behavior. We all know what that looks like. And a lack of empathy. So if only we picked our elected leaders like we have picked our philanthropists, we'd be in good shape. So here's a couple other quick tips, and I'll take questions if you need it. Be present. We talked about that. They're not going to give unless they know you well. People give to people. Retaining donors costs a lot less than getting new donors. So keep that in mind. It's their money. We talked about that already. Their choice. Here's another interesting tip. Philanthropic people ask good questions. And they will ask questions that other donors will not ask. So I'll tell you a conversation I had with somebody a while ago. There was a prospective donor that I was they had made some kind of a donation. It wasn't huge or anything. And I called them to say thank you. And the husband said, I really want to talk to you about our group. Can we schedule a time, like a meeting? I said, okay. And they'd never really given anything before. And so we sat down with this couple, and they asked me about our mission statement. And they asked me about our strategic plan. And so I was reading your strategic plan on your website. And I want to know, have you done this? Have you done this? Have you done this? Yes, we've done that. Yes, we've done that. We're pretty good about it. And then a week later, we got a $100,000 donation, right? Philanthropic people are curious about those parts of your work. So if you're meeting with somebody and they start asking about your mission, about your plan, like there's a lot of, they ask really good, in-depth questions. So as soon as that happens, your radar should be up. Like, this is a really good potential prospect for us. It's a long game. It might not be today, it might not be tomorrow, it might not be for a long time, but unless you're consistently keeping up with those important relationships, you won't see the results. When I was at St. Mary's, there was a major gift officer named Ron, and every week he would go out to lunch with this woman who was the widow of an alum, and he would take one of the Christian brothers with him. And he did that for about 5 or 6 years. And at some point, the VP said, Ron, you're wasting your time with this person. Nothing's going to materialize. And he said, I don't believe that. And he kept going out to dinner with her. She passed away. She left $2 million to the art gallery. So it's a long game. So think about that. It might not be today, but if it's not today, that doesn't mean you shouldn't cultivate that relationship. And I like to say, good things happen to good people that do good work. So if you're doing the job with the right mindset, and you're working hard, and you're being authentic, people recognize that. And it becomes a lot easier when you're in the zone in that way. And things tend to roll your way when you are doing things for the right reason. So make sure and if you're not, then you have to it's going to be a lot harder for you to fundraise and be successful. And then Moni, like you asked, I always say gratitude is your superpower. So this is the stewardship. This is my, in fact, that Ron, that fundraiser that I knew a long time ago, the best fundraiser I ever knew, he told me once, if someone says they don't want to be thanked, then you should only thank them 3 times, which is such a great rule of thumb. And I think about that all the time, and a lot of times when I'm writing to a donor or somebody an email, I try to put that thank you in at least 3 times in the message. So it could be, hey Kathy, thank you so much for meeting with me. There's the first one the other day. I really appreciated all your insights into the meeting. I look forward to seeing you again. Thank you again. So there's 3 right there. You can do it really easily. Do 4, do 5, whatever you want to do it. But the more you show appreciation, the more they're invested in you. And so that's the most important thing, is to have gratitude. Any questions? Yes.
Anonymous donors, those who want to remain anonymous, are there any special tips, rules for that?
You don't share their name with anybody, but you should know who they are. They should not be anonymous to you.
The board should know?
No, not if they don't want. So you should
So ask.
respect that. If they truly want to be anonymous. Sometimes they're like, I just don't want my name in the public, but you can tell your board or whatever, so as long as you kind of understand where they're at. So, because anonymous might mean different things to different people.
So ask.
Yeah, you got to find out. Yes?
Can I share a story that reinforces the culture of philanthropy?
Yeah.
When I was applying to colleges, I got a letter from Dartmouth College. It was on the nicest stationery I have ever felt in my life. I can still conjure the feel of the stationery in my hand. And the first line was, "Welcome to the Dartmouth family." I got a letter from Stanford that looked like it was mimeographed and basically boiled down to, if you give us money, you can come. Guess what choice I made? And I was just a kid. I didn't know, I'd always wanted to go to Stanford. Till I got that letter that somebody said, let's buy some nice stationery. Some California girl will be impressed.
Chris, I want to just give positive reinforcement for Brittany and your team when you do send out thank you letters. And one of the things that you do is when you have had performers and you've had a chance to have that backstage, and say hello, getting a card that was signed by that celebrity.
Yeah.
I still have that sitting on my desk. It's really nice.
Yeah, that was Brittany's thing, and that was a really cool idea. And so what Tracy's talking about is, if you're a donor at a certain level, you get invited backstage to meet the artist if they're available for a meet and greet. But one of the things we do that they don't know is we get these little postcards with the image of the artist, and we have them sign them, and then we mail them we mail the donor the postcard afterwards. So they have that. So it's a nice memory of that experience, and it reinforces the importance of them to us. Any other questions?
I love the role of thanking 3 times, and I think one challenge we have, it depends on staff size and bandwidth, right, is how we thank. But I want to echo what you said, because I think, sometimes you'll get a major gift from someone where, their history with your organization was they gave $25, in a year, and then they leave a significant gift behind, in their estate planning, right? And we found that, sometimes it'll be someone who, has asked 50 questions about, gift acknowledgement letter that was totally sent, for a lower dollar gift, but spending that time with them, making them feel seen and appreciated, you don't know how that's going to pay off in the future or how that's going to come back.
Yeah, I'll tell you, one of the largest donations we ever got here, there was this couple that for years donated $125 a year, which was the minimum you could donate to be a member. And every time they came to a show, which was often, they would stop by our VIP room, and they knew they couldn't go in, but they would say hi to whoever was up front, and we would chat for a few minutes. The wife passed away, and then the husband passed away the next year, and we were just going into the COVID lockdown, right, around 2020, and we were closed, and I had no idea how we were going to survive the next couple of months. And then we got a notification that the husband and wife had left their home to us. And it was here in Livermore, and we were able to sell that, and that was an incredibly significant gift. But in their lifetimes, they've maybe donated a little bit over $1,000 total for the whole time they were here.
When will you give a talk about corporate donations?
I gotta be asked to do that. Corporate giving is very different, because unlike philanthropists, they're not completely altruistic. They need something in exchange for their contribution, and so you have to determine what it is they need, and can you provide that to them. And so it's a very different conversation. And yes, they are kind, and there's a lot of them that are really great and generous, but there's a business reason why they're being generous too, and you have to kind of understand that and make sure that you're approaching them in that way. So for us, we have things that we can provide them. We can give them tickets to shows. We can provide the space rent-free, depending on the level of their gift. So we also have a lot of marketing that we do throughout the whole Tri-Valley, and so there's a lot of impact that we have on marketing, so we can put your name on everything we do. But also it has to kind of align with what their goals are too. So like Cynthia is a great example, because they're a lab-based organization, and science and education is really important to them. So they want to make sure that whatever the program is, it's something related to, that's aligned with the work that they do. And so they're great sponsors of our speaker series, where we bring science-related speakers to come and speak at the theater. And so you kind of have to understand the motivation of the organization, and then you have to understand if you can fulfill what their needs are as an organization. But that's a very different talk than working with a major donor.
Chris, can you talk about kind of cultivation opportunities for a social service organization? Where you don't have people that are coming for a show and they can thank and see, but they're supporting, so I'm thinking Access Community Health, right? So the patients aren't the donors, going to be the donors.
No, not necessarily. But if you have a facility and you can give a tour, or you can introduce people to the people that do the work, you know, they might want to learn more about the work that you're doing. So if you're doing Meals on Wheels, you might have a kitchen somewhere you can show people, or you could also have some of the volunteers to talk about what that experience is like for them, who they're meeting and engaging with. Sometimes you also have to protect the privacy of the people you're serving, so you have to keep that in mind. If there's ways to show them the work that you're doing, that's usually the best thing. So you have to kind of figure out how that might work. I mean, Pedrosi's another one. Right. I mean, it's hard to. You don't really have a building that you give people a tour of, but you can have students write a letter about how much this has impacted them, and you can share that with people. Those are good things. I don't really know the answer for every organization, so you kind of have to think about what is it that you can provide that will give people the information that they need to feel confident about their gift.
Chris, I really appreciate you talking about, coming from a place of growth-minded and positivity. There are times when our organizations are in crisis. Can you share anything about how you handle those times?
Yeah, so I always think it's easy. It's a lot harder to raise money for a sinking ship. So it kind of depends on how deep you are into the crisis. So if you can get ahead of it as much as possible, that's ideal. But if you're at a point where we're not going to be open in 3 months if we don't get enough support, that's a wholly different conversation. And you're probably talking to people who are your current major donors and people who already invested in your organization. I don't know if I'd really try to get a new donor from them. Yeah.
So I worked for an organization that lost 90% of their donors for something that happened, and the organization was about to tank. I was in development at that time, and the only way that donors came back was when they felt that they were heard. And if something like a crisis happens, you have to listen to your donors and give them the time and let them say what's on their heart. And that's the only way they start to come back one by one by one by one. And that's, I think, something that really brings donors back is that feeling that you acknowledge what they're feeling about the organization, and something did happen. And that's the only way they came back, was that feeling coming back, that you care and you're willing to do something about it.
Yeah, that's good. And last year, we had 2 years in a row where fundraising was down, and I was getting pretty concerned. And so one of the things we did last year, and it wasn't like an imminent crisis, but we weren't going to address it. We were going to start having some issues. And so we had our big gala event coming up, and we decided we were going to approach 2 of our biggest donors and ask them to do a $500,000 match giving drive. And so we would hope that would inspire other people to give. And we announced it, so they said yes, and then we announced that at the event. And I was pretty honest in my talk. I said, we haven't been raising as much money in the last few years. And there's a lot of reasons why that happens sometimes. The market is defined by social issues and things that are going on in the world, and philanthropy kind of ebbs and flows from different sectors. And we were at a time when the art sector was getting a big hit. It wasn't just us. And so I said, this is the reality. Here's why what we do is important. And I talked about that. And then I said, and now we have this great opportunity because everything you donate right now is going to be matched up to $500,000. So we're doing $1 million drive. And it was inspiring. And so we kind of took something that was scary and turned it into something that was really inspiring. But we couldn't have done it without those 2 donors who had already been so invested in us over the years. They were the ones that the highest level did not want to see us fail, because they have invested in us the most.
Well, thank you,
Okay,
Chris.
thank you.
Very much. Always learn so much from him, and he's been part of our EG Roundtable. I say every year, come be part of it. And I'll tell the story in our EG Roundtable this last year. It was actually we met on Giving Tuesday, and there was a newer organization that was there, and we were talking about how much do you ask, and because people were worried about, we sent out an email yesterday, do we send one out today? You know, and Chris talked about the more you ask, the more you give, so she went home and sent out an email and raised $20,000. So, you know, that's what we do for each other when we support each other and like share our information and our resources. So I want to thank all of you for being here and remind you that we're a nonprofit organization. And we very much appreciate your support. And so those of you who donated when you register, that's what helps keep these meetings going to pay for some of the expenses. And also, again, Sandia Labs for their support.